Hello and welcome back to class. As you know, my name is Tochuku. So in our last class, we talked about the different sections of a financial model, and we saw the front end section that comprises of the cover page, the executive summary, the assumptions and scenarios. Talked about the engine, which comprises of calculations and financial statements, which is the financial model, right? Or the forecast. And we also talked about the outputs calculations, which comprises of the DCF values, the IRR, the ratios, and so on and so forth. So today we'll continue with the front end section where we'll talk about the assumptions tab. So as you can see, we have created different tabs on this our financial model, right? And we said that the executive summary comes after the cover page because the users of the financial model would like to see the results of the financial model. They would like to see just a summary, an overview of the financial model. Then the next on our worksheet is the assumptions. So let's quickly talk about some things or some notes about the executive summary before we go on. Sorry about that. Let's talk about the assumptions. Let's take some notes about the assumption before we go on and build the assumptions page. So some key points to note about the assumption and inputs is that it is a very important tab to build in a financial model. And um, we notice that some models don't include the assumptions and input tab. That means the builders of the financial model just go ahead and just hard code some numbers and just drag it to forecast. So, but that's not professional. So the assumptions and input tab is very important. It includes all inputs and assumptions in the model. So when you are building a financial model, don't just include some assumptions. You need to include all the assumptions that you use in building the model. The assumptions and input tab comes after the executive summary. Now we can see executive summary. Then the next thing is the assumption, which we are going to go ahead and build them out. So it should come after the executive summary because it answers the question of how we arrived at the executive summary, right? So when you present the executive summary, the the users of the financial model want to know how you arrived at those results, and the assumptions tab answers that question. So the next thing to know about the assumptions tab is that it makes the financial model flexible. That is, you will be able to change any input or assumption, and that will affect all the model, to affect all your model. So it is very important to build the assumptions tab. It makes your model very flexible. Remember the FAST standard, where F stands for flexibility. So building an assumptions tab makes your model flexible, easy to change, readable, and you'll be able to present it as a presentation. The next thing to note about the assumptions tab is that you must plan it. You must plan it. You must gather all the necessary data that you need to prepare the assumptions tab from your team members or from your clients. So you'll be able to build the assumptions tab. So you must be planned. So while building the assumptions tab, you must take note of the color codes for financial model or for building financial models. Inputs are written in blue, while calculations appear in black. So this will guide our color codes throughout the model. So we'll just go right ahead and build our assumptions tab. So um, we will just open up our case study and replicate all that we have there in our assumptions tab. Now follow me. So the first thing, why building assumptions, right? If you already know what you're solving, you have a case study at hand, right? So what you need to do is this case study has been presented in such a way that you already have each sections of your financial model, which you need to replicate as an assumption. We need to, this case study has given us the assumptions that we need to build this model, right? And it went ahead to say that we should make all the necessary assumptions. Let's see. Now look at this sentence here. Feel free to make any other reasonable assumptions that you may need to build the model. Now this is basically an FMI case study. So we are just going to go right ahead. First thing first, you need to know there are general assumptions or economic assumptions or some general assumptions that you need to make that relates to the model you are building. So general assumptions, right? So I'm going to design it this way, right? I'm going to build a cell style for it. So what I'm going to do is make it a heading one. Now, if you want to know how I build this, just come here, right click and modify. You format. Now I want it to have underline, right? I go to the font. I want it to have so the font will be Arial, the color will be black. It will be bold. I need it to be bold. Font size 10. Then border, I need it to have a border, right? So I'm putting this heavy blue border, right? And what else? I'm putting this heavy borderline here, just the underline part of it. So I can as well make it fill it with a color, right? I can fill it with a color, maybe this color, right? So when I'm done, I click OK and I go back to the cell style, and that's heading one. Now you can see that's the general assumption. So the general assumptions for this model deals with things that we actually need to build this model, right? They are not just part of the case study, but you need them, such as the days in the year. Now I don't want it to be in that column C. I want it to be in column D, days in the year. So how many days in the year do we have? Now look at this. This column here is for my units, while this one is for my inputs. So I'm going to go to this. The units, when you're talking about days, right? Days in the year, the unit is days. The inputs, we will not put an input there. We'll just come here because it's not a single value. Days, number of days for each year. Now, if I want to get the number of days for each year, I'll use the formula. I'll use the function called date. Now, the parameters include year, month, and day. So I'll take the last day of this 2014, which is 12 and 31, right? Month 12 and day 31. Then I'll minus that date function again, select that particular year again. I'll minus the first day, sorry, the first day of the first month. Now, look at this. While we are doing this, there is a gap. One day will be missing in this formula. So because one day is missing, we'll just go and add +1, right, to make it 365 days. So we'll just select right and press Ctrl R. Now you can see my date having a decimal place. I'm just going to select general, right, to make it just days, right? So another thing is so come on, hold on, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. So this is assumptions. Let's see. We can call these financial statements assumptions. Financial, sorry, financial statement assumptions. Now under its escape, under this we can just have general assumptions. General assumptions. So I'm going to put a cell style here. All right, I'll make it heading 2. I'm going to show you how I built that, right? So the next thing is the next under that general assumption is I can say the unit of measurement or the unit of measurement. I can put hash. So my unit of measurement in this model is thousand. So the numbers you see in the model, most numbers will be thousands. So I'm going to come back to this after the next session. So the currency, I want to talk about the currency. The currency we are using is the currency is USD, right? Those are general information. We can put inflation, but we won't put inflation here. We will build a scenarios tab that will accommodate inflation and all other general assumptions. Now let's build another another heading. We'll call this what can we call this? Let's call it cell styles. Cell style guide. Now, cell style guide helps you to know what each cell stands for. So in financial model, you need to be consistent when you are building your financial model. You need to know whether this is an input, whether it is a calculated number. So we are going to go right ahead and say for your cell style guide, when you have a number, how should it appear in your financial model? Your numbers should appear this way. Let's say you type a number, right? E.g., 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How should it appear? So your numbers should appear this way. Built, we have built our normal cell style here. We modified it and we went to numbers, we formatted it. We go to the number, we can come to custom or just come to number here and select that. You can choose that your decimal places should be 1 or 2. For me, most times I like keeping it at 1 for simplicity. Then you can choose that you should have a thousand separator. Then you can choose that your negative number should be in parentheses, right? Or brackets and should be color red. So you just click OK. I just left all this other formatting as they are and click OK. So of course this is our normal. You don't need to go to the cell style guide to implement that because that's the normal cell style guide. That's the normal cell style, right? So the inputs, how should our inputs appear? How do we know that a number is an input? Inputs. Our input should appear when you input a number in Excel in a financial model, it should have blue color, right? So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You type this, how would you know it's an input? So another thing you have to know is this cell style, since we are always going back to it to access it, you can right click it and add it to your quick access toolbar, right? For me, I've added it already. So it's over here at the top of the worksheet. You can see it over here. Yeah. So for me to easily access it, I'll just press Alt. Once I press Alt, you can see the next thing is 4. So I'll press Alt 4 to easily access that cell style. Right. So for that input, this is how I've edited the input modify. We want our input to appear in color blue. Just go to the font. Font is okay. Color blue. Can select blue, any blue of your choice. I prefer this royal blue. So yeah, font 10, and that's okay. Should it have a fill? No fill. If you want to fill it, just fill it with something very, very light, or you just leave it as it is. Border, should it have border? We can allow it to have a border, very faint border, or just leave it with no border. So I'm going to select OK and click OK. Now, because I want to implement it right now to show that this number I've put here is an input, I will press Alt 4, then make sure I've selected the right cell and click Input. You can see, so that's an input. So the next cell style is percent. You can put a percent. How do we show our percent? The inputs, the unit is percent. The inputs, let's say we have now let's press Alt 4 and edit our percent cell style. This is our percent here. So I'll right click on it and modify. I can format it and go to numbers, go to percentage. I want just one decimal place, or let's take two decimal places, right? I don't want any other thing, just percent, two decimal places, and click OK. So if I press 2.5, let's apply the percentage to it, Alt 4. Come here and click on percent. You can see it's showing 250%. Let's retype that 2.5. You can see it's showing percent. Now we can do multiples, multiples. In finance, we have some numbers are in multiples, like 2.5 times, 1.7 times. So like interest coverage and some other ratios appear in multiples, right? So let's create multiples. We can say 2.5x, right? Instead of typing x here, we can create a cell style or custom formatting to show that multiple. So we come here to cell style. We've created multiples here. So I'm going to format it or modify it, rename it to multiples. That's the right name. And come to format custom. You can see 0.0x. The point is the decimal place. I want it to have x, right? So when I come here and type 2.5, I want it to have that cell, multiple cell style. So I'm going to click here, multiples. You can see showing 2.5x, but on the formula bar, it's showing just 2.5. But on the cell, what is visible is 2.5x. Yes, you can use it to calculate, and you have 2.5. It is the number that matters. Now we can have another cell style, which is called linked cells. Linked cells. Most times cells can be linked. Oh God, what did I type here? So this is for multiples, right? Next one is linked cells. Linked cells. So linked cells, a cell can be linked from another cell, right? So we want to see how we want it to appear. For example, if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we want to see if we link it, if we had linked it from another cell, we want it to carry this kind of formatting. Let me show you how we went around about it. So we format this and we come to alignment, nothing to change there. Fonts, leave it as it is. Then this border, I want it to have this color, and I want it to have these broken lines on the outline, you know, just like that. And that's it. So I'll press Alt 4 and implement it. Just select it. You can see it's now showing linked cell style. So the next thing is units. Units. So you can see this column contains the units of whatever we are typing. For example, percent unit of measurement is percent, you know, days in a year, unit of measurement is days, just like that. So I can come here and say how do we represent units? You can use the cell style guide. For example, units, you type, let's say we have units here, typed here. The kind of cell style I want is, let's use explanatory cell style. It's more like an explanation. So that means I can just come here to this column here, all these words, I can just use Alt 4, and select this. I want them to be this way, Alt 4. I want them to be this way, right? So another thing is the heading. You can see that we've started using headings here. We've started using headings here. So this is heading 1, this is heading 1, this is heading 2. We can have heading 3, just like this. Let's say cell styles. Control X, let me put it here on this, Control V. So I can implement the cell style heading 3 here. Let me implement it here. Now let's see how we build that. Right, heading 1, heading 1. So how we went about this is, let's say Alt 4. It's heading 1. As you can see, if you go to modify, we just the font, made it normal font 10, and it should be bold, area, right? Then what else? Border. It should just have a thick bottom border, right? What else? Fill. We filled it with this light color blue, right? Just like that. Just like that. That's heading 1. So I'm going to implement heading 1. Oh, so sorry. Escape. Alt 4. I'm going to implement that heading 1 here. Heading 2. Heading 2. Just like that. You can see our heading 2. So I'm going to type heading 2, and you see we've built that already. Just like that. Alt 4. See our heading 2. If this does not meet your satisfaction, you can always modify it. Then same way for heading 3. Heading 3. So it's just an underline, Alt 4. This is my heading 3, right? That's fine. So the next thing to do is to go through our case study and see what next we can build from it. So now look at this. We must have gone through this before now, right? So one interesting thing you can do is just replicate all this thing in your Excel. So what I can do is just divide my screen into 2, right? So I'm going to do revenue assumption, which is the same thing as sales assumption. So I'm going to come here and just select this, Control C, Control V. I don't want to go through a long process. I'll just say revenue assumption. Now from here, we were told that in 2016, remember 2016 is the latest financial statement that we have. In 2016, net revenue was 594.44 per unit. That is gross revenue of 694.44 per unit, less freight and warehousing cost of $100. dollar per unit. So we are going to just type it. Remember, we are told that revenue, gross revenue is how much? See our gross revenue here. All right, so let's put it in 2016. So you're going to put that under 2016. So this is our 2016, sorry. This is our 2016, right? So put it on the rightful place. So our gross revenue is 694.44, right? What's the next thing? Less free. So we are told that the gross revenue is $694.44 per unit, less freight and warehousing cost. So we are going to put a line item called freight and warehousing costs, right? So freight and warehousing cost is $100 per unit. So let's not forget our units. These are per unit, right? Per unit. The same thing for this. So remember our sales style is alt 4. These are explanatory cells, right? So we are going to say, what is this for the freight is $100, right? So when you have your gross revenue, then less freight, what you get is your net revenue per unit. This is also per unit, right? So these are inputs, alt 4. These are inputs, right? And this is a summation calculation that's equals to this minus this. You get 594. That's what they are telling us here. $594.44. So the next thing or the next line is we are told that this is a cyclical industry and the sales prices are expected to average 800 in 2017 and so on and so forth. So we are going to put these sales prices here. Let's see. We are told about the sales prices. Sales prices, or price, right? Sales price. So we have in what year? In 2017, 800. So these are expectations. They are not sure. Remember, cyclical industry means prices change from time to time, right? So we are going to make assumptions on this. When we go to this aspect of the case study, this instruction parts, we are told to create an assumption page to enter your input, which is what we are doing. Please make sure your assumptions, or make sure the assumptions page is logical and well organized. Then we are told to build scenarios to run 3 cases: base case, worst case, best case, and worst case on few of the assumptions that create the most variability. So we are going to do that, but let's finish up with this. Let's finish up with this sales price in 2018. Remember the column you are working on, 2017. Are we in 2017? In 2017, that's 800, right? So 800. This is an input, so we represent it as an input. 800 in 2017, 725 in 2018. What else? 825 in 2019. What else? 800 in 2020 and 750 in 2021. So these are basically inputs for now. They are inputs for now. So I'll do alt 4 and tag them as inputs, right? So when we create a scenario page or a scenario tab, we might just link them from there. But for now, they are inputs. So these are showing under column C. I don't want them to be under column C. I'm going to cut them and put them under column D. Yes. It should be under column D. Control S. Yes. So the next thing to do is to talk about this line here. Freight and warehousing costs are expected to increase at inflation. So this freight and warehousing costs, Control C, Control V. So we are going to, you know, put them at inflation. So I'm going to just maybe like put a note here. I'm going to put it, flag it, and maybe put a comment. Maybe put a comment here to increase that inflation, right? To increase that inflation. So we are going to come back to it and increment that inflation. Remember that freight and warehousing costs for now is equals to this amount here, 100, right, in 2016. So when we bring in our inflation, we are going to use it to increase it. So this is for now it is $100 in 2016. So I'm going to do Alt 4 to show that I actually linked it, right, from another cell, right? So let's go back to this line. Bright's manufacturing, I'm on this line, has a capacity of 420 units per year. So let's put the capacity. Most production companies have a capacity that their machines or equipment can produce per year, per day, or per month. So the capacity, that's, sorry. So that's like the number of units it can produce per year. You can put num or just the asterisk. So the number of units inputs is a single number, right? It's a single number. So Bright's factory has a capacity of 420,000 units per year. It's either you put it here, or since it's on yearly basis, we can just, type 420 here. I'll type 420,000, press Control Enter to replicate it on all the cells, Alt H O I to make it fit, right? Press Alt 4 to make it an input, right? You can see that's the capacity per year. So the last thing for that sales is the company expects sales volumes to grow at 5% in 2017 and 4% every year thereafter. So that's the expectation. Remember, it's not precise, it's not certain. They expect that's the volume growth, sales volume growth, growth rates, right? Sales volume growth rates is a percentage. So they say for 2017 is 5%. So let's go under 2017 and put 5%. I can just select all these sheets, all these cells here, right? And make it percentage cell style. Alt 4, select percentage, right? And now 5%. Then the rest is 4%. So I'm going to type 4, press Control Enter, right? So, but these things are inputs. So let's see how we can make it an input. Let's see, does it affect the percentage here? It doesn't, but it's an input, that's fine. So the company expects sales volumes to grow at 5% in 2017 and 4% every year thereafter. That's what we've just done here. Right, so I'm going to save it. So you're going to go ahead and replicate all of these other ones here. Just transcribe them in your Excel. So what you're going to do next is you you just do another heading here, Control V, and call it operating cost assumptions. Did you get that? So you are going to just go right ahead and start replicating all this under column D, right? Look at it. A breakdown of the forecasted operating cost for 2017 is presented below, right? So you're going to do, variable cost, just like that. you know, just replicate what we have here, raw materials, utilities, total variable costs. You're not solving anything for now. You're not, doing any calculation for now. It's just for you to transcribe what you have on the case study on your assumption page. Just present it, make it look beautiful as much as you can, before the next class. Then we now start calculating. So, but before then, we will do a scenario page, scenario tab. We want to work on this scenario tab, but let's talk about scenarios before we do a scenarios tab, right? So let's talk about scenarios tab. Now remember that scenarios is part of the front end of the model, right? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So one thing about the scenarios tab is it is very important. It is very important, and every model should have it, right? It is very important, and every model should have it. I hope my background is not noisy.
No at all.
Thank you. So every model should have a scenarios tab, right? Scenarios show, accommodate variabilities in our model. There are some variables that we cannot predict with certainty. Now look at our case study here. See our case study here. I can show you some things. For example, we have look at this particular line. This is a cyclical industry, and the sales prices are expected to average 800. Now, you cannot predict with full certainty the sales price, you know, in a particular year, especially years in the future. For example, this model, the last financial year for this particular company was 2016, and they want us to forecast 2017, 2018, 2019, and up to 2021. Now, for you to forecast this, you might have an industry knowledge about how price is going to be. So look at this industry, especially this industry is a manufacturing industry. You might have a forecast, maybe from a reliable source, about future prices. So you are going to use your scenarios tab to take care of these variabilities, these very important variables that are beyond your control, right? So let's go back to that sheet. So this assumptions tab is an extension of assumptions. Sorry, this scenarios tab is an extension, right? Extension of the assumptions tab. It is still an assumption. We are making assumptions, you know. So it's an assumption that is very important in building the model, right? So it's an extension of the assumptions tab. And in most cases, we have three cases, right? So we have three cases, which includes the base case. Remember this, base case,
Yeah.
best case,
Yes.
best case, right? And the worst case. Some models might have more than these three cases. You might see some models that have other cases, such as the management case, you know, the 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 super worst case or anything you want to call it. So some models might have more than three cases. So each case come with their own assumptions or their own inputs. So why do we use scenarios tab? We use the scenarios tab because it contains assumptions or key drivers, you know, drivers that are hard to forecast. They are hard to forecast. So that's why we want to present different cases You know, one thing about model is you can't be exact, you can't be perfect. You just want to present different cases that are close to reality, right? So that is why we want to present them the scenario tab. So most models have up to 2 to 5 scenarios, right? So it is always better to have a model that has just a few scenarios. 2 to 5 is okay. If you have 10 or 20, it is too voluminous, too much, or too many. So just make it simple. Present scenarios between 2 to 5, and that makes it okay. So since we've talked about this scenarios tab, let's see how we can go right ahead and build the scenarios, the scenarios tab. But one thing to know is that, so one thing is we want to see steps to building the scenarios tab, steps. Let's see steps to build a scenario. I'm going to show you steps we can use to build a scenario, right? So one thing you can do first of all is to, you know,
What do a scenario?
what did you say?
Like you wrote steps to build a scenario.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. So steps to building a scenario, right? Okay. Right. The first thing is we want to create a switch. We want to create a switch. We've done something like that when we are doing our simple three-statement financial projection. So we create a switch. We create a switch. I hope you still remember that. Then the next thing to do is so when you are presented with the data, first of all, you can just choose to put the data in a box. Sorry about this. So I'm going to just copy this. I want it to be the second thing we want to do. Control V. So first of all, make sure you enter the data inputs in a large box. So you are going to be given data. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Then go ahead and create a switch. Then the last thing you do is to build a skinny row to show the live case, or to build a live case, to build a live case, a live case. So this live case will be the one that will be implemented on all our models, right? So I'm going to save this and go to our scenario tab. So now look at our case study here. Look at our case study here. We talked about this. We talked about this being a cyclical industry, and the sales prices are expected to average this expected. When you see this kind of word, it means that we are not sure. We are just predicting. So that's why we need to put that kind of thing in a scenario tab, right? So we are going to say, we are going to just come here. So to make life easy for me, I will just select all this and press Ctrl 0 to hide all those sheets there, all those columns there, right? So I'm just going to come here and press arrow, left, right arrow, and just press Alt 4 because I want it to have this heading. So I'm going to type um economic, economic, and what? Scenarios, economic and scenario. How do we spell our scenario again? Scenario inputs or assumptions. So let's name it economic scenarios, right? So we are going to come here and replicate all that. Remember, so the next thing is we want to build a scenario for. Let's see, let's use heading 2. What scenario is that under our case study? This is price scenarios, right? Prices are expected to average this, right? So let's do it, you know. Oh God, sorry. Okay. So remember in our prices we have okay, we are going to come here and say this this is base case, right? Best case and worst case, right? So this will be our life case, right? Up here will be our life case. So down here, now remember the steps we talked about in building. Steps we talked about in building. Sorry, I want to go to control function, arrow up, arrow down to our notes. So remember steps, you enter the data inputs, sorry. Enter the data inputs in a large box. So let's enter the data inputs in a large box. Let's go back. Go up, go up. Okay, under our scenarios. So now look at it. Let's look at it from 2017. What are the prices that we were given in our case study? Look at, we were told that in 2017, prices are expected to average 800. So let's take this to the side, right? Bring this to the side. So in 2017, we have prices as 800, right? What else? In 2018, 725, 725, 825. What else? 800 and 750. Now, these are inputs, right? These are inputs. Let me use an input cell style here because they are hard coded, right? So because we want to make other assumptions. This is base case. This is base case. Now we want to see what is the best case. In best case, will prices increase or decrease? Let me know in best case. This is base case. In best case, will prices increase or decrease? Right? So let's increase this
I
price. In best case, we'll increase it
I thought
by,
you were talking to.
what did you say?
I said I thought you were talking to.
Yeah, I was talking to you. Yeah, I'm asking you. In best case, do you expect prices to
If
increase or
price
decrease?
prices will increase in best case, then it will reduce in worst case.
Yeah, so prices will increase in best case and will reduce in worst case. So we'll say minus 100 in worst case. So let's go and implement it here. So we'll just say equals to this plus 100, right? Plus 100. So we are calculating is control R. So for here, we'll say this minus 100. We are just assuming it to be so, right? So you can just choose to say plus 50 minus 50 if you choose to, right? So that's worst case. So look at this. We can put all this in a box. Can just press Control Shift 7, to make it have an out border, right? Outside border. So that is the first step when you are creating a scenario. The next step is to create a switch. Now remember how we create a switch. There are two different ways in creating a switch, right? You can just come here and just say, okay, let's put this here. Let's just say something like this, Control Shift 7, and we say this is scenario in use, scenario in use, you know, let's say, okay. Okay, so I'm going to just put a switch here, right? A switch here. Let's say this is a switch. Control Shift 7. I'm just going to put one here. So that will be our switch. I can just name that cell to be scenario switch. Scenario. I'm going to use small letter scenario switch underscore switch. Right. So what I can also do is to use this developer tab, right? I've shown you how to do it, how to have your developer tab if you don't have it in your Excel. How to go about it is just come to File menu, come to Options, come to Customize ribbon, right? And if this is unchecked, this developer, check it. Then you click OK. Then the developer tab comes. So when you come to the developer tab, you see all these controls. Come to inserts. Then you use the form controls, select combo box, right? So you have a small cursor showing plus sign. Then just draw it here, draw it here. So you can right click and come here to format the control. Select format control. Your input range, you can select all this base case, best case, and worst case to be your input range. Then the cell link will be this switch here. Remember, we've named this. You can also type it to be the switch scenario, right? Switch underscores the scenario switch, sorry. Scenario underscore switch. Right. You just press OK. Now look at this. Let's click out, select this. You can see showing base case. Base case stands for 1 on our switch. Best case stands for 2 on our switch. Worst case stands for 3. Now let me see how many more minutes we have. Okay. So I want us to have a live case here. Live case. Now live case, we want to see which one. Okay, let me put it here. Sorry, I'm going to create space here. Control X, Control V. Now, there are different ways to bring out any of these to show the one that we are using, actually, to show if we are using best case, base case, or worst case. So we can use different functions. You can actually use an if function, use use nested ifs, index, choose function, and so on and so forth. You can also use offsets. So in our next class, we'll delve into the scenario switch, right? But let me just show you how we can quickly do it. If you use a choose function, in our next class, we'll explore different ways we can actually use to solve this. If you use a choose function, you can just select your index number should be this switch here, this scenario switch. You press comma, your value 1, value 2 should be this number here for value 2, and this number here. Now, one thing about this choose function is the order of the numbers is based on how you select them. So assuming we select this one first, this one will be number 1, this one will be number 2, number 3, but we are selecting from here, first, second, and third. So this is it. So it's showing 700, which means we are using which scenario are we on right now? Can you answer that?
Worst case.
Worst case. So that means if we select base case, you see it changes to 800, right? So I'm going to escape, give it a bold formatting, right? I can also do Control Shift 7 to make it have an outside alignment or outside border, right? So I'm going to save this. So in our next class, we'll explore other ways in which we can, you know, do our life cases. So, but your assignment will be now to create other scenarios. Remember, this is price scenario, right? Changes in price. So we can see that if price is not 800 as we expect it to be, price might actually be 900, price might actually be 700, right? For 2017. So your task will now be to go to this case study and look for other variabilities. Now, let me show you one. Let me show you one. Look at this. The company expects sales volume to grow at 5% in 2017, 4% every year. So you can do best case and worst case for this too. And let me see it in our next class. Thank you for your time.